YouTube,
Yeah,
we're back, baby.
we're back.
You know what
The
it is.
Coomers.
The Murakumers. I forgot we did that.
Yeah, I did too until I said
At first, I was like, "Wait, what did you just say?"
it. We are here.
It's Gabe and
Paul
from the Spine Crackers podcast.
Crackers podcast,
where you know us, you love us, hopefully. We have a podcast where we talk about books. It's very long, and there's a third person who's not here.
Mm-hmm.
But we're making it shorter. If you watched our most recent video or listened to our most recent update for 2022, and we thought it would be a perfect time to kick off the new year by returning to our, I think it's safe to say, beloved series.
Definitely beloved.
The Murakami on Haruki Murakami's short story body of work. And so that's what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. If you watched any of the previous videos, we went through the what was the name of that collection? Men Without Women.
Men Without Women. And
we did videos on all of the stories in that book.
Yep, you can check them out on our YouTube channel, which you're watching right now.
Which, by the way, I'm trying to be better about doing the YouTube stuff up front. Because YouTube is important. You people are the
tubers.
The tubers. you guys drive. YouTube can drive engagement, baby. So I'm trying to engage with you, YouTubers.
Yeah, we're showing our beautiful faces more, which is important.
Yes, exactly. I'm losing weight in the new year.
Yeah, me too.
All for you, YouTube. So in the spirit of doing the YouTube things, it does rule. If you have thoughts, just drop a comment. We love comments. We love likes. We love subscribes. Mm-hmm. And if you like what we're doing, we have a Patreon as well, where we post additional content. Paul's doing some fun stuff over there. I'm doing some kind of reading vlogs of long books that I'm reading over the course of a few months. I just finished Infinite Jest at the end of last year, and I'm about to start reading Moby Dick. So
just a couple of big boys you're tackling right now.
Yeah, I like to have like a big book going in the background as well as I'm kind of churning through the shorter ones.
I like that.
Yeah. So like, subscribe, Patreon, etc. Thank you. We love you.
And in case you only watch our Murakami YouTube videos, we don't only talk about Murakami on the podcast. Just to throw that out there. But we read other books.
But if you like Murakami, we do have an episode on Killing Commendatore and
Norwegian Wood.
We haven't. No. We read it.
No,
we don't have an episode on it.
Whoa, sorry.
Whoa. False advertising.
Yep, shit.
But if you want us to read Murakami, show it. If you want us to read more, show us with the likes and subscribes and comments, because we are happy to.
Yeah.
At least me and Paul are. Wink. Love you, Matt. Well, okay, the other thing I want to do at the beginning here is shout out friend of the show, Ben from Bookshore, YouTube's #1 biggest Murakami head.
He loves Murakami. He's gonna love this video.
The biggest Murakami fan in the world. So if you haven't, go check out Bookshore on YouTube. We'll leave the link for his channel below. He does. We're memeing a little bit.
We are memeing,
but we love you, Ben. And he does have a good video on Murakami and his kind of own journey with reading Murakami, which we'll link below. I think that's all the kind of business. Yeah. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
What are we reading? We're starting Murakami's other. How many short story collections does he have? Like, probably.
I actually was going to ask you that.
I don't know, but I know it's a number.
It is a number.
I mean, a decent size number.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, I knew it's a number. But anyway, I forget how many, but we're starting The Elephant Vanishes, which has quite a few more stories in it than Men Without Women did. That one only had like 8 or something, I think. And this one's got like 15 or something like that. So we're starting off slow. We're just going to do one in this episode, and the first one in the story or in the collection, and it's called The Wind-Up Bird and Tuesday's Women. So
Yeah.
What do you make of the title? First, I mean, obviously, Wind Up Bird is his arguably most famous novel, right? Is the Wind Up Bird Chronicle.
Wind Up Bird Chronicle. Yeah. Do you know if this was written before that book? I should look this up.
We definitely should. Definitely should have looked this up.
This is 92. So
I don't know when the Wind Up Bird Chronicle came out. I want to say it was later than that.
So it's kind of a prequel. Okay. This is 1997 for the Wind Up Bird Chronicle.
Okay, so this is a prequel.
It is a prequel. Yeah. What were your first impressions?
Well, so my first impression. So basically, this is kind of a story about a guy. This is going to come as a shock to people who know Murakami. It's about a kind of man. It's kind of a lost young man, doesn't really know what to do with his life.
Yeah, early 30s.
Early 30s, late 20s. He's doing some cooking in the kitchen. There's a cat. His cat involved. There's a cat that's lost that he's trying to find. Yep. There's a mysterious young girl that he encounters. All brand new things for Murakami that no one who reads his work will be familiar with in any way.
Dude, honestly, this story was like if it was almost like Murakami fan fiction. It had like every single thing that Murakami does in a 30-page little story. I was like, whoa, all right.
I know there's a Murakami bingo card that gets floated around there.
Oh, I've seen that.
I feel like you would definitely get a bingo out of just this short story.
I know.
Card.
Definitely bingo.
So yeah, the story follows a young nameless narrator,
nameless man.
Another classic Murakami move. Who is he's quit his job as a sort of like a paralegal, I think, and he was sort of thinking about going to law school but never did, and he's kind of directionless right now. He is married and his wife is kind of the primary breadwinner, and the story takes place over the course of a day or so, and his wife is off at work, and his sort of task for the day is to try to find their cat who's run away or gone missing for an abnormal amount of time. And he goes out to try to find the cat, and for whatever reason he thinks that the cat is at this abandoned house like down the street that he thinks that the cat might have gone to, and as he's there looking for it, he's hailed by this kind of young teenage girl from her yard across it's like a little alley that he's in, I think, trying to find this cat. It's kind of like in
the backyard,
and she's in her own backyard, and she's like, well, come over here and wait.
Tanning.
And we can look for the cat or wait for the cat together. And he does, and weirdness ensues, and he goes home. We'll get into the details. This is just broad strokes. And he goes home having not found the cat. His wife comes home, and that's kind of,
and then basically the plot of The Cat by George Simenon happens in the last 3 pages.
Yeah. There's some marital, I wouldn't say strife, but maybe tension.
Well, she like accuses him of killing the cat.
True. Yes.
Which happens in The Cat.
That's true. Yeah. I forgot. Which we have a book we have an episode on, by the way.
Yes.
And then the other thing that's going on that's strange is that throughout the story, he's getting these mysterious phone calls.
Yeah.
From a woman that he can't identify. If he knows her, he doesn't recognize her voice, and she never identifies herself. And her line is, can I just have 10 minutes of your time to come to an understanding about our feelings? And that's it.
Yeah. Well, and then there's another bingo card thing with that conversation, because there's awkward, weird phone sex.
Yeah, she this unnamed woman, at first she calls, he's like, I don't know who you are, kind of hangs up. She keeps calling back, the phone keeps ringing over and over and over again, and eventually he does pick up again, and she sort of goads him into some strange phone sex.
Yeah, and I think he ends up hanging up, but it's like he's kind of on there longer than you'd expect him to be. But yet again, though, it's like the Murakami sexual writing is just it's always been a turnoff and weird. It's never really that pleasing to read.
which I mean, we've talked about this before, but at this point, I think it's just intentional. Like, he's not writing sex to be like actually erotic or turn anybody on.
Yeah,
It's meant to be awkward and strange,
cold,
yeah,
clinical.
right.
Yeah.
So that's the basic plot, as it were. And I think there's some interesting details we can talk about, and some lines and stuff. But what was your overall takeaways, Paul? Overall thoughts?
My overall thought, I mean, I haven't read Murakami since we read Killing Commendatore, and he's always been one of my favorite writers, but this story in particular was like the first time I was hit pretty hard with like the troping nature of Murakami, and just like he can just be just spitting out similar themes to the rest of his bodies of work. He can be like too open-ended, and it came across as a little, maybe pointless is a wrong or harsh word, but it was so open-ended that I wasn't really enjoying the writing as much this time around. I just like, it really fell flat for me. And I think it actually, like, I finished it and I was like, I think this is the worst thing I've read by Murakami. this story.
That's interesting.
It just didn't do anything for me. It felt, my video is going to cut out because I have computer problems from viruses, etc.
What kind of viruses you got, Paul?
Let's
not
skip
talk
over
about
that. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what your first impressions were, but I felt like pretty bored. And I mean, I think at the beginning of it, I was actually laughing quite a bit. I think him just making spaghetti in the kitchen and getting this phone call, and he was just like, no, like, I have to make my spaghetti. I can't like talk to you.
This random woman.
Yeah, it came, like, the beginning of it was pretty intriguing. I thought it might end up like going somewhere fun or whatever, and it's not like it doesn't. There's interesting passages and moments here and there, but it doesn't really add up to anything substantial at all.
So one thing that I think is interesting is that we have another friend who has, so neither of us have read the Wind Up Bird Chronicle, which is the larger novel that shares part of the title with this story. But we have another friend who has read it, and he said that this story, and I'm not sure if it's the beginning, just like the beginning of this story, or like the whole thing, is also the beginning of the larger novel, the Wind Up Bird Chronicle, which came later, right, as we've established.
Like the actual story?
Yeah, word for word? I mean, he said, you were there when we were talking about this, I think. He said that basically everything that happens, at least at the beginning of this story, is also the beginning of the Wind Up Bird Chronicle. Whoa, which I think is really interesting, because I would be curious. And again, like I said, I don't know if it's like the whole story here is like word for word the beginning of that, or if it's just a similar situation of a guy getting these phone calls or what. If anyone knows, drop a comment and correct us or clue us in. I'm probably going to read the Wind Up Bird Chronicle this year. You
have to read 100 books in 100 days, so
that's true. No, not in 100 days. But that friend is sending me a copy, actually, because he had an extra one, so I'll probably try to read it this year. But so I think that's an interesting thing to keep in mind, is that, obviously when this was published, it wasn't part of a larger novel, so it can be treated on its own, but the fact that it was then kind of like expanded on into this huge story that Murakami became famous for later, I think is interesting as well.
That is interesting, because I hear a car horn somewhere. That's weird. Or was that on your end?
I don't think it's coming through. Okay. At least not if it's not from you.
Yeah, it was one of the first times. Like, I thought that all of the Men with That Woman stories, not that I liked all of them, loved all of them, but they all felt like completed stories. And this one felt, maybe that's, I don't know. It's interesting to hear that.
Oh, looks like Paul froze for a second. So I'll just, you froze for a second there, Paul. What were you saying?
Oh, what the heck?
No, you're back.
There's that car horn.
Yeah.
I forget what was the last thing you heard me say.
Just that you were saying that the story felt kind of unfinished to you, so it's interesting to
Oh yeah, like it just it felt like, now that I know that, this kind of seems more of a first chapter
Mm,
of a story.
mm.
Or maybe, yeah. Maybe we
I
have to
could,
read the Mondo Burner Chronicle now.
yeah, it's probably in the cards at some point down the road for me at least. I mean, I didn't really it didn't particularly strike me as unfinished because, like you said, a lot of Murakami's stories. I'm thinking of what's the one from Men Without Women? That's just the guy's name. Kino.
Kino.
That story ends on a very, very ambiguous note where none of the strangeness that comes in the plot of that story is resolved. And it's a
Mm.
similar note to the way that this story ends, which is with the main character and his wife kind of neither of them wanting to answer when the phone starts ringing again, and the phone just kind of goes on ringing, right? Like, so the story ends this way. um I've not finished half my beer when the telephone begins to ring. Get that, will you? I shout into the living room darkness. No way, you get it yourself, says my wife. I don't want to get it, I say. No one answers it, and the telephone keeps ringing. The ringing stirs up the loose dust floating in the dark. Neither my wife nor I venture one word, me drinking my beer, my wife sobbing away. 20 rings before I lose count and just let the thing ring. You can't keep counting forever. And I thought it was interesting because the way that Kino ends is, as I recall, I'm maybe missing some details, but he's in a hotel room and there's like just this incessant tapping on his hotel
Yeah.
window, and he's just sitting there not knowing what to do, and that's just the end. So it was interesting that there's like a similar kind of mysterious rhythmic pattern trying to get these characters' attention, and them sort of systematically trying to block it out or ignore it, or pretend that it's not there, or avoid it in some other way. So I thought that was an interesting, and so it felt, I guess what I'm trying to say is it felt of a piece, as an ending to the way that he writes a lot of his stories. So I guess if it felt unfinished, that's not a unique thing to this story, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and I've gone on record saying that I actually like how a lot of his stories end up being kind of open ended. But maybe, I mean, and I really like the Kino story a lot too. But I think that it had more depth to it. Like the monster was kind of like, you didn't totally know what it was. It was kind of ambiguous, and it kind of represented something darker and deeper. And it was just, it was good use of what Murakami is known for, which is, his magical realism, obviously. But in this story in particular, I just think that there was like there's too much open-endedness. Like, I don't know why the wife wasn't picking up the phone.
Well, she was sad about the cat that she thought was dead.
Yeah, but I don't, yeah, I suppose you're right. But I think that there was too much open-endedness with the initial phone call with the mysterious woman that was not resolved.
Yeah.
The interaction with the teenager,
Yeah, let's talk about that.
that was weird, and it's also not resolved because, well, yeah, we can talk about it, but he's traveling through like the backs of the houses and whatever, looking for the cat, and there's like a lot of really good writing in that section about like shadows falling across his face, and just like the way Murakami can write about a space has always been intriguing to me.
Mm.
But he ends up he's like standing, kind of almost giving up, looking for the cat.
Yeah, I think he's smoking a cigarette. Mm-hmm.
And she like kind of shouts to him, or just says hi or whatever, and kind of coaxes him to hang out with her. And you kind of you start to learn a little bit about her. She kind of seems like kind of a weirdo.
She's got some like leg injury and like doesn't have to
Which
go to
is
school.
also the leg injury thing. The limp is also in South of the Border, West of the Sun. Like the main woman character has a limp too, and I just want to know what the hell that means to because I think there's actually been there was a female character in Men Without Women that also had like a limp or a false leg or something.
That sounds right. I couldn't remember off the top of my head,
but what she like, I don't want to say she was acting like sexual towards him, but she kind of is. She ends up like changing into a bikini, and like she's trying to get him to drink a beer, and he's just like, no, I'm not thirsty.
Yeah.
the whole interaction felt like really creepy to me,
Well,
especially because she was 15 or
she,
whatever.
yeah, of course, which is like, if you've watched any of our other videos on Murakami, this is not new. His arguably, misogynistic and or creepy approach to writing women, and we've debated a little bit whether or not that's just a sort of negative creepy thing that he's doing in his writing, or if it's as you've sort of advocated for in the past, like a conscious kind of critique of the male gaze as a way of viewing the world. Yeah, but this one is interesting because it's not the girl is not presented as like lecherous. The guy doesn't really, which is unusual in the sense that the guy does not comment on her body really at all, which is uncommon for Murakami, which I thought was interesting.
I think there's one line where he says something about her is pretty, like a pretty neck or something.
Yeah, there might have been something like that.
I think there's just one line.
But yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of mysterious young girls in Murakami's writing. I think of Marie and Feeling Commendatore, right?
Yeah.
And that's just another trope. So there's these two mysterious female figures, the one on the phone and then this girl in her backyard. And yeah, she kind of is trying to get him to, she coax him to sleep almost, and she starts drawing shapes on his arm with her fingertips and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And trying to get him to kind of fall asleep, but the way that she's talking to him is just like, it gets very, very strange, not in a sexual way, but she starts talking about death and dying, and it's just like very strange. There's a paragraph that I kind of wanted to read because
about the death ball.
The death ball, exactly.
Yeah.
So she says, I'm going to start a little bit before that. Can I talk some? The girl asks. I'll be real quiet. You don't have to answer. You can even fall asleep. You can even fall right asleep at any time. Sure, I say. Death, people dying. It's all so fascinating, the girl begins. She's whispering right by my ear, so the words enter my body in a warm, moist stream of breath. How's that? I ask. The girl places one finger seal over my lips. No questions, she says. I don't want to be asked anything just now, and don't open your eyes either, got it? I give a nod as indistinct as her voice. She removes her finger from my lips, and the same finger now travels to my wrist. I think about what it would be like to cut the thing open with a scalpel. Not the corpse, the lump of death itself. There's got to be something like that in there somewhere. I just know it. Dull like a softball and pliable, a paralyzed tangle of nerves. I'd like to remove it from the dead body and cut it open. I'm always thinking about it, imagining what it'd be like inside. It'd probably be all gummy, like toothpaste that cakes up inside the tube, don't you think? Ugh, it's gross.
Yeah, I don't like it.
That's okay. You don't have to answer. All gooey around the outside, getting tougher the further in. That's why the first thing I do once I cut through the outer skin is scoop out all the glop, and there inside where it starts to firm up would be this teeny little core, like a super hard ball bearing, don't you think? Like and then he kind of like proceeds to like fall asleep, and then but when he wakes up she's gone, and that's it. That's her exit from the story.
Yeah. And then he just kind of goes home, and then like the ending of the wife fight happens basically. But yeah, I mean that I enjoyed. I mean, even though that passage is disgusting and gross, it was that level of weirdness to Murakami's writing that I appreciate and enjoy most of the time. Is just like kind of an almost random event, a random monologue happening. But I had a tough time relating that to anything else that was happening in the story. I couldn't, like, what's the point of this paragraph in this particular story?
Yeah.
And I think usually with Murakami, I can at least hint at an idea of something that he's trying to go for. And it can, maybe it's open-ended, but it can still be like interesting to me. And I can like revel in the open-endedness of it. But this time around, I was like, I cannot I just don't understand why this death ball bearing death orb is at all related to what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that I thought about with it is, one of the other themes that Murakami likes to kind of play around with, or not play around with, but just engage with directly, is it's like the ways in which relationships fall apart, right? Between men and women specifically, generally, but also sometimes between friends, and family members and stuff like that. But I think that like there's always this like kind of rotting core of these relationships that no one can ever really address directly, and just kind of sits there and festers until it infects the rest of it, and it all just kind of falls apart into like goop, like she was saying. And so I was wondering if like her talking about death there wasn't also kind of a way of talking about the way that relationships tend to die, the way that there's sort of, and then of course the significance of the next scene being this fight with his wife, and potentially the if not the beginning of the end of that relationship, at least a kind of hint at something rotting beneath in the mainframe, I guess.
Yeah, I think in this particular case, though, of course, there's not enough information to get the particulars of the relationship, but it seemed to stem, like the rotting pit seemed to stem mostly from the unnamed main character. Because I mean,
yeah,
his wife seems great. She's like, "Oh, you quit your job? I'm not even gonna ask why. Cool, do you?"
Right.
Oh, if you don't want to work longer, like I'm making enough money, you can just like chill.
Right. Yeah. She suggests that he just kind of be a stay-at-home cat dad, and
Yeah,
he I think is written as being slightly resentful of that fact, or of her suggesting that.
yeah,
right?
which is
Sort
like
of a traditional masculinity, like I should be working and helping and blah blah blah.
Yeah. But yet again, it's like you don't have enough information about the relationship to know where the rotting pit is. But the main character just kind of seemed like a shitlord to me.
Yeah.
It's like, you're the rotting pit, dude. You suck.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Which I think is interesting because, I mean,
which, I mean, I guess that could relate to the paragraph too, if you want to say that he is the one with the pit inside of him, not the relationship. But
true. Yeah, it was interesting because I think that a lot of times these kind of like forlorn, directionless young men that Murakami writes about a lot, they're presented. I would argue, like I would agree with you that I think this guy was less sympathetic than a lot of the other ones.
Yeah.
From his various stories, and novels. Maybe you can chalk that up to this being a comparatively earlier story, but I'm not sure. And he wasn't like an absolute scumbag or anything, but I don't think it wasn't written in as sympathetic a manner as some of the other ones.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, and I keep trying to think, like, why did I feel like if I read this a year ago, my opinions on it would have been completely different, but I'm like seeing more things that I haven't in the past that are just kind of like irritated me in the story. And part of it was like his characterization of just being like, I mean, I know most of Murakami's characters tend to be a little dry, little like calmly simplistic, not stupid, but like they kind of operate in the world in kind of a slow, calm level, and make choices slowly, and it makes for like a calming read. But something about his characterization just made me like really dislike this guy, which again doesn't like relate, it doesn't have to relate to how good a story is, but
yeah
yeah, I just who's a shitlord.
Well, I also think that the just to kind of support your point a little bit about the main character being the the like rotting death ball, he talks a little bit about after he gets home, a couple pages after he leaves the girl's backyard.
Are you gonna read something? I'm gonna start my tea right behind me. I'll be right back.
Yeah, okay. So he's talking about this is where part of the title of the story comes from, this idea of the wind up bird, the wind up toy.
Sorry, everyone just saw that I'm wearing pajama bottoms on YouTube.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
I'm laying on the floor like a little schoolgirl,
Oh, okay.
kicking my feet up. free
Okay,
free feet pics
we're
for all
even
the.
now.
Yeah, exactly.
That's gotta be
This
the thumbnail.
just like this is how I read. I don't know. I'm most comfortable like this.
I love that for you.
Yeah. So anyway, so he's back home. Um, Back home, I take in the dry laundry and throw together the makings of a simple meal. Then I collapse onto the living room floor, my back against the wall, to read the evening paper. At 5:30, the telephone rings 12 times, but I don't pick up the receiver. After the ringing has died away, a lingering hollowness hovers about the dark room like drifting dust. The clock atop the TV strikes an invisible panel of space with its brittle claws. A regular wind-up toy world this is, I think. Once a day, the wind-up bird has to come and wind up the springs of this world. Alone in this fun house, only I grow old, a pale softball of death swelling inside me. Yet even as I sleep somewhere between Saturn and Uranus, wind-up birds everywhere are busy at work, fulfilling their appointed rounds. So it's, sort of just giving a sense of like, directionlessness. Like I'm not evolving, I'm not changing. The world around me is moving or changing, but it's also weird thematically for me because a wind-up thing only does one thing, right? Like it just gets wound up and kind of starts over again.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that, but I guess even a wind-up toy has motions and can move in a direction, but it's not it's not totally stagnant.
I think that the main character is kind of like, I mean, it's a good comparison because he does seem like, what is his job? He's a paralegal, and
Not anymore.
I got the sense that he was just going to get another job like that, and he was going to wind up again and work at it for like a few years, and then yeah, I mean, I think there's a common theme with Murakami's characters that have like a low level of ambition.
Yeah.
Too. But yeah, in that passage you read too, there was a mention of a little ball or
Yeah, the pale softball of death.
Yeah. So
yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any other passages that I think are worth reading or
I didn't underline anything.
Yeah, I don't know a few things, but okay, there's one passage that I wanted to read it's brief, and I wondered if you picked up on this because I put a big question mark next to it because it was strange.
What page is it on?
32. So his wife's already home, and he says, I emerged from an after dinner bath to find my wife sitting all alone in the darkened living room. I throw on a gray shirt and fumble through the dark to reach where she's been dumped like a piece of luggage. She looks so utterly forsaken. If only they'd left her in another spot, she might have seemed a little happier. And I'm like, who's the they that's leaving her and dumping her? You know what I mean? It's almost as if maybe he's talking about the wind up birds, or the wind up, the invisible hand of the wind up master or whatever, but that just stuck out to me because I'm like, what do you mean they dumped her or they left her there?
I know.
But maybe that speaks to his worldview, that no one's really in control of their own actions, and that it's all just wind up shit.
Yeah, but the way he wrote it though, it made me feel a little grossed out, and it felt a little, I can't believe I'm saying this because I've been such a Murakami defender, but it did kind of read as like mildly misogynistic in a way to me. Like the way he was just talking about his wife like she was luggage, it just kind of it wasn't a great vibe.
And he's pretty indifferent to her feelings about the cat. He's a little bit
yeah, he just, after she starts freaking out, he like goes into the kitchen, just like pounds of beer,
right,
and just kind of stands there.
He's like mildly miffed that she thinks that he killed it, but other than that, he doesn't really care that it's gone, or that she feels, or that she's upset about it.
yeah. At one point, she towards the end, she says like, you killed it with that look of yours.
Like he's like a gorgon or something.
Yeah, which I kind of believe. I'm on her side.
Yeah. Maybe the cat could smell, how animals are supposed to be able to smell cancer and stuff. Maybe the cat smelled his death softball.
I think he did.
So I mean, that's I don't have much else in terms of the details of the story. I think, you know, this is Murakami 101 for me, right?
Mhm.
Like this is just quintessential, just so many of his recurring themes, recurring tropes, recurring kind of character archetypes are all contained in this little 30-page story or 25-page story or whatever it is. And you know, I liked it quite a bit actually.
You
So
did?
yeah, I
Oh
did.
my God.
It was
This is a first.
you know, it's just so, and maybe it's because you've read more Murakami than I have, and so I haven't had that same level of I'm not quite as saturated with all of these tropes and recurring themes and stuff of his.
Mhm.
But to me, it was just like everything that I associate with Murakami just in a bottle, right? Like just in a little flask, and it's just, you know, distilled down to its essence. You just take a shot of it in this little story.
They
And
should sell that in Whole Foods.
yeah, right. Murakami essence. It's just sweat scraped off of his back after he goes for a run.
Dude, that would honestly sell. That'd be a hot item in Whole Foods.
Yeah. Hey, it'll be next to the gamer girl bathwater. Murakami post run sweat. uh but yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it, and his stories are all just so I'm starting to feel like his strength is in the short story form actually.
Oh,
Again, I haven't read a ton of his novels, but I've been impressed, generally speaking, with more of the short fiction, and I just feel like it's this they're just so weird. It's reductive, but they're just so weird in a way you can't put your finger on. They just feel like it feels like a stack of pennies that's that's about to fall over. They all just feel so unstable to me, but
yeah.
in a way that just I like quite a bit.
Huh.
And this was a good example of that.
I mean, yeah, up until this story, I would agree totally with what you just said, but I don't know what it was about this one. I just like there's too many tropes that hit me, and I was almost laughing. I was like, oh, this
Yeah,
girl's she's got a limp. Okay, that's another one. Like it
the
just
cat.
kept adding up and adding up. And I had this weird feeling.
There's no well. There's no well in this one.
There's no well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we're missing some. But I actually had the feeling of like, yeah, I definitely got the Murakami weirdness, and you know, everything was there. I had the feeling of like wow, is Murakami shallow in a way? Like, is it if the pennies do tip over, is there anything really there? And that was the first time I actually questioned that. It was like, how what is the actual depth of this story?
Yeah, that's an interesting way to continue the analogy. I don't know the answer, because
They seem to never tip over.
I don't think they ever fully tip over. But
Yeah.
the interesting thing about a stack of pennies is in the tension and the wondering if it is going to tip over or not. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then, like you said, once it does tip over, it's kind of just a messy pile of pennies that aren't worth much. But
Yeah.
it's in that moment of like, it's like playing Jenga. You know what I mean? It's like, is it going to tip over? Is it, you know what I mean? And that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know
just
how
like,
good this analogy is, but
no, I think
it's
it's
what I
good.
came up with.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you're right though. It does hold a lot of tension, but it's like maybe it's because I've read a little bit more than you that it's just like it's maybe a little bit it's getting a little bit old for me. Like it's kind of unfair too because this is an earlier story of his, so um I think like there are stories that I've read that have a lot more depth, I would say. But yeah, I don't know. I wanted a little bit of maybe just like two pennies to fall over or something.
Right. Yeah, I hear you.
You know,
Yeah.
just felt a little too. It was like I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's like too much tension, not enough payoff or something.
Not enough release.
Sometimes it's nice to see the Jenga pile fall over.
Totally. Yeah.
You know?
I think everyone can relate to that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you just want to knock it over on purpose.
Oh yeah. Like in the same way I want to like throw my phone into a body of water every time I cross a bridge or something. Like, why does that feeling happen?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, all right. So I think we could probably tap out at this one.
Scores. We all know the scores, right?
Yeah, I think we scored all of the other ones.
Yeah.
I'll go first because I
Okay.
know I liked it a little more. And
Yeah.
you know, I don't think I'll color your score with mine, but you might color mine with yours. So
Ooh.
my initial reaction was like a 3.7. Like I enjoyed this story quite a bit. So it struck all of the, it was just pure Murakami, and I'm coming to appreciate that in the short story form specifically.
Yeah, you're Murakami to appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my initial, I think I'm gonna give it like a 2.3. I kind of had a bad time with this one.
Yeah, interesting way to start the new collection.
I know, and for like our new listeners that didn't listen to the old ones are probably like, this Paul guy hates Murakami. It's not true.
No, it's not true.
I'm like the biggest proponent on the podcast for him.
Definitely. So yeah, I mean, I think that makes it more interesting. We have a new arc, as they say, for online content creators. The Paul hates Murakami and Gabe loves Murakami now arc.
Oh, I see Louise behind you.
Yeah, it's my dog in the background.
I love her.
Well, I think we'll leave it there. We'll be back. I don't think we did the Harry Potter houses for the short stories, did we?
Oh no,
I don't think so.
We can skip them.
Yeah. But we'll be back soon as we go through this collection, The Elephant Vanishes, and we'll probably, depending on how long, because some of these stories are longer, some are a lot shorter, so we maybe do 2 next time, or and then maybe do the one after. It just depends how long the stories are, because we don't want these to become full-fledged 2-hour-long episodes,
which we definitely could do, and we are trying to edit ourselves in 2022. So I don't know how successful that's been in this video, but if you like this, you know what to do. Tell them, Paul. Like and subscribe and comment and look at what listen to our podcast and follow us on Instagram,
Twitter, Facebook,
Patreon if you like us that much.
If you just want to buy us a beer, we got the buy me a coffee thing in the link in the description. It's all there. Make sure to check out Ben's channel, Bookstore. That'll be down there.
Link in the description.
YouTube's #1 Murakami scholar and fan.
Yep, #1.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching.
Bye.